Hey everyone, welcome back. It's James from Just Understanding Data, and today what I'm going to be talking about in this video is it worth going on a coding bootcamp? There are lots and lots of different factors at play when it comes to deciding whether or not you should go to a coding bootcamp. I actually have attended a coding bootcamp. I went to General Assembly's Data Science Immersive Bootcamp in 2019, and I hope that some of the personal experience that I've gone through can help you to make a decision to decide whether or not it's right for you. Let's go into the first thing. So what does a normal bootcamp day look like? There are generally different ways that bootcamps will run, but they'll have a section for learning time. And in this learning time, basically you'll be learning new programming techniques, new syntax, and new pieces of content and understanding key concepts. But then as well as that, inside of your bootcamps, you'll have some time on campus or on remote called labs time or practice time. And that's where you've learned a couple of concepts in the class. And then you'll have a dedicated amount of time to practice those new concepts. So whether it's for loops, if statements, conditionals, while loops, for example. So it's really important to make sure that you do your best to, if you do go on a coding bootcamp, to really utilize those sessions. There'll also be like a lunch period, and throughout the day you'll have breaks, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, 4 slots. There are many different types of advantages through going to a bootcamp. The first one is definitely rapid skill development. So whether you have a different background and you're looking to acquire new skills, going on a coding bootcamp will force you to improve your skills in a technical area and your knowledge in a technical area very quickly in a short period of time. The second real good advantage of attending a bootcamp is that there's a structured learning path. So, teachers and previous cohorts have allowed like a bootcamp provider to make sure that the content that you're learning is hopefully relevant in industry. And then as well as that, it's also built at a steady pace. So, when you're learning it, like you come from a beginner background and you move up towards intermediate and expert topics and pieces of content. The third reason is you can potentially and hopefully make a career change using a bootcamp. I personally made a career change from being a marketing analytics specialist to working now as a full stack data scientist and data engineer. It can really give you the necessary skills and the fundamental skills that can help you to do that career change. And then I think the final advantage of doing a coding bootcamp rather than doing an online course is that there are others there that are on a similar journey, and that you can realize that you're not alone in the struggle to learn new content or to make that career change. When I was personally doing my bootcamp in physical on premise, I was surrounded by people who were really eager to switch careers, eager to learn new concepts. The energy was really, really positive. And it was like, it helped me to get through those times and realize that I'm not alone. The disadvantages of a coding bootcamp are, generally speaking, there's a really, really high cost to entry. So the course that I went on, which was a data science immersive, cost around 10,000 Great British pounds. And unlike a university degree, you will likely have to self-fund the course. This can be quite a big upfront cost, considering the fact that that was excluding and not including my travel costs and also my my lunch costs. The other disadvantage that I would say is quite a big one is there's a low barrier to entry, and this was something I was personally quite worried with at the start, because if anyone can apply to go on this coding bootcamp, how can I make sure that the credentials that I get from that or the experience that I get from that will help me to land that role or that contract? And I think that the real thing that you need to do is, if you go on one of these coding bootcamps, is to make sure that when you finish the course, the learning is continual. You never stop learning. That's how you can hopefully get the most out of your money when you go on one of these courses, is to realize, yes, you're getting an increase in skills, but at the same time, there is a low barrier to entry for the course, and therefore you need to really make sure you differentiate yourself from other candidates. And the final disadvantage that I really personally found quite struggled with is that there are incredibly long hours, and it's very, very intensive. I was traveling to and from London, and I know that there's also remote options for boot camps as well, but for 3 months, I was doing approximately 11-hour days, which is basically, course content would start from 9 o'clock till 5 or 5:30. But then we would continually set evening homework or project-based homework that would take us up to around, 7 to 8. I would then travel home and get home around 10 o'clock to wake up around 6. So you will be drained, you will be exhausted. The real question is, are you up to the challenge of being able to put quite a lot of things on hold and really focus and dial in for a couple of months? And if you're not, then maybe that's a disadvantage that makes, going on a boot camp not for you at the moment. So yeah, those are the main disadvantages. When you choose a type or style of coding bootcamp, there are a range of different types of career paths that you can choose. Some bootcamp providers provide things such as full stack web development or software engineering. Some other ones do user experience designers, and there's also data science or data analytics. In terms of choosing which one's right for you, I definitely think that you should decide on how much you like logic, how much you like programming, data. Do you want to go more into data or web development? And that will hopefully make you just decide on the right kind of boot camp. But also it's worth remembering that if you're learning a programming language like Ruby or Python or JavaScript, that once you know one programming language, the underlying concepts and fundamentals are the same. So you can quickly transition into a different type of role. And I personally found that a lot with myself when I did a data science bootcamp, is that I really, really enjoyed the Python programming aspect of that. And it made it so that when I went to contracts, I ended up actually going into more Python developer roles and also data engineering roles. So just know that going on a coding bootcamp is one way to get an entry-level job. But as long as you learn some of those coding skills, you're going to be able to, switch and pivot into other technical roles from there. So what are the risks involved in attending a coding bootcamp? I think that there are some risks involved in terms of, do you have much in the way of savings? How motivated are you to make a career change? All of these things added up, as well as your past experience, are going to define how risky doing a coding bootcamp is for you. For example, if you're a history graduate, you don't take the pre-work or the pre-course work seriously. You take 2 months after the course to have a rest. You don't apply yourself or you update your LinkedIn or your CV or your GitHub repository. It's unlikely that you're going to make the most out of a data science coding bootcamp. But a good example might be if you're a natural science graduate or you have a physics background. You take the pre-work and the data science bootcamp very seriously. You avidly look for jobs and have a great polished GitHub and LinkedIn. Then the chances of you finding a role or a contract are going to be significantly higher. So it's really worthwhile thinking about, here's my previous past experience, here's currently how motivated I am, and I've got enough savings to get me through to see and get a job or a foot in the door in a new industry or profession. Finding a job post bootcamp is not easy. Specifically, if you're in the data science world, you'll be up against, physics masters, people who have PhDs. So you really do need to go that extra mile. And I think going into cloud engineering and the data engineering route is a great way to differentiate yourself against other data science candidates. I think that if you're a really good developer, then that can definitely help differentiate you against other bootcamp students and also university students with higher credentials. Definitely, I think it's a question of what you do after the bootcamp can also influence how risky it is to go on one. Okay, so let's say, for example, you do decide to go on to a coding bootcamp. How can you really maximize the chance of getting a job after? I think there's a couple of things that you can do here. Number one is definitely apply, in an industry that you're already familiar with. Depending upon what job experience or work experience you're doing before the bootcamp, you'll have a certain amount of domain knowledge. For me personally, I worked in marketing, so I actually have 2 ongoing developer and data engineering contracts with marketing agencies, and I found that that's where I was able to add a significant amount of value very, very quickly. Just because I've worked in that industry before, I know the types of problems that these kind of companies are trying to overcome. If you're applying to an industry that you've already you're already familiar with. You'll know which kind of problems are worth solving. Also, you won't have to relearn any industry knowledge, and you'll already understand the lingo and terminology. And then potentially even you'll have contacts within an industry that can help you land some job interviews. The second thing that I think is really, really good for you to do is to optimize your digital and offline portfolio. So after I graduated from General Assembly, our cohort, like our whole graduate cohort, worked directly with an outcomes team that helped us to kind of maximize our chances of securing employment. They really recommended, making sure that your LinkedIn profile is really up to date, you have a good headshot, and that you've got links to your GitHub repository. You're going to need to rewrite your CV, make sure that any previous experience you've had is as tailored and reframed as possible to the types of roles you're applying for. And then also, if you've used GitHub, try and host all of your work there and make sure that the code looks good and it's well commented, because if employers check out your code base or your GitHub repository, you want to leave a good impression with them. And then I think a third thing that you can do to help yourself land new jobs is to continue working on new tech projects. Finishing a coding bootcamp is not simply enough to secure a job. You must continue to actively learn new technology and frameworks that will help differentiate you against other candidates. By having a tech project that you're also actively working on, you can show employers when you go to their office or have a call with them on Zoom or Google Meet, and it shows that you're committed to being a developer or a good data scientist or web developer. And it'll also act as an icebreaker, so you'll have something to talk about actually in that interview other than just what you previously have done. My final piece of advice on improving the chances that you're going to land a job after you've done a coding bootcamp is to learn a cloud technology vendor. Whether that's AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, learning a technology vendor is going to make sure that you're able to create these robust systems, fully stacked web application frameworks, online, deploying machine learning models, depending on what kind of coding bootcamp you've been going on. But it's going to allow you to take what you already know in terms of knowledge and skill, and you're going to be able to put that into production. And when you can put something into production that is useful for a company, they're going to get value out of that. So the best way you can learn cloud computing is pick a project where you need some of the cloud computing components, such as a live database or like a data warehouse. Download the relevant command line SDK, such as AWS Command Line Interface or Google Cloud SDK. Download the client libraries for your language, whether you're using Node, Python, Java. There's always a client library associated with any of these cloud vendors that help you to utilize their services. Read all of the cloud vendors' API documentation and then just start developing a project and just give it a go. Now we get on to the final question, which is what kind of job support can you expect from a coding bootcamp? I honestly think this varies from company to company. The course provider that I went with, General Assembly, didn't offer any guarantees with a job. Other companies will offer guarantees and you won't have to pay them for the course until you have landed that first job. It's really worth researching online and seeing what the kind of course content is, how much it costs, whether or not they do offer a guarantee or not. But yeah, hopefully all of this information can help you to make the right decision. Realize that attending a coding bootcamp can be incredibly challenging yet rewarding. And it's really worthwhile you measuring up and weighing the advantages and the disadvantages. And also just please remember to do your research on potential providers. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe and smash that like button. I'll see you in the next one.